Welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere with your host, Chris Parker.
And hello and welcome to Everyday Entrepreneurs Everywhere. This is Chris Parker and I am with Simon Broad, who is based in the Netherlands and is very much in the smart energy and sustainability industry. Simon and I worked for a year and a half at Power Peers, and I imagine we will talk a bit about that story as well as some other things. And I understand he has some unique and magical other perspectives about business that he would love to share. So, Simon, welcome to the conversation. And would you mind just share with people, what does Simon do? What do you do, and why do you do what you do?
Thank you, Chris. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Simon Broad. I have been in the renewable energy sphere for many years. Why I do it is because I see sustainability as absolutely key to getting businesses and people into a better place. We're seeing a lot of activity now in that area. Energy is, of course, a big part of sustainability. So I'm glad to have been part of that and looking around for new ways to be involved.
And why is that important to you? What motivates you to be in the sustainability space?
So it's something I've come to a little bit gradually. When I've dug back into my past to find where this comes from, I land on the Exxon Valdez disaster, which you may remember, which of course tells you how old I am as well. And I remember these horrible images of crude oil leaked all over 1,300 miles of beach and so on. And why it was particularly impactful for me is my parents both made careers in Exxon. So for me, this money from the oil industry was feeding us, was putting a roof on our heads, was paying for my education. And at the same time, it had this kind of slimy side which I couldn't quite reconcile. And then I went through my studies as an engineer, and I was looking to be involved in the energy industry. And I gradually saw that change was happening. I've been trying to be at the innovative end of energy ever since.
How old were you when the Exxon Valdez disaster happened? That was up in Alaska, I think, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I must have been 21, 22, something like that.
Okay. So you're not that old. So do you remember when it happened, if there was an emotional response or was it more retrospective?
No, I do remember at the time, because of my background and the fact that my parents were working in the oil industry, I was rather pro the whole military industrial complex and didn't question it too much. And that was the moment that I started questioning things. Yeah. So it's significant.
Ooh, dangerous, starting to question. I was in 8th grade, probably in, I guess I was probably 13, when the Challenger explosion happened. And I remember literally being in shock and you know, the school was disrupted and they brought in TVs and things. And to this day, when I have fellow coaches, like, you know, sometimes I do leadership development coaching and they use those clips, I'm still emotionally affected, and because I think it was just such a tremendous moment, and you know, in my life when I was a youth, and so I can imagine that something can, and of course the Challenger disaster, you know, that was all because of lack of psychological safety and lack of trust and lack of communication and business pressure over common sense. And Thiokol knew, you know, engineers knew that what would happen. I'm not sure the backstory of the Exxon, but I'm sure there had been decisions made along that you know, resulted in disaster.
A huge amount of human failure. But of course, you can blame Exxon for mismanaging a tanker, but you can't blame Exxon for the whole oil industry. I mean, the world is using oil, and getting the world to stop using oil is a huge challenge, but it's one that we have to address.
Yeah. So, wow. Cool. I didn't know that about you. So that's why I love these, because you know, these are people I've known literally for so long, and every conversation is just delightful and discover. So if we go back to what do you do, clearly you're a man, driven by purpose and on a mission. So, in your professional world, how do you solve this problem for humanity? What are you busy with?
So I'm very proud to have been involved with Power Peers, which I think is a kind of groundbreaking initiative. And it seeks to really make people more aware. And I think awareness is where everything starts. If you don't know something, if you don't feel it, you're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's a part of the industry which is often not getting very much attention, because our industry is full of engineering types who look at rational things like electron flows in the grid and logistics and megawatt hours and heating systems and this kind of thing. And that's important, but the psychological side is also very important in all these things. So for me, that was a real privilege to be part of that for that reason. Before that, my life was much more on that rational side of things. So it was also a departure and a lot of fun. Nice.
And maybe describe a little bit about what you did for Power Peers, because I know you're around business development and innovation, and bringing that to market, and where, maybe take a few minutes and share where Power Peers is now and where you're going after that.
Sure. So at Power Peers, what I really most enjoyed about the job was the taking care of a customer. And it's not just the sales part. Sales is one thing, but it's taking care of a customer through their whole journey to understand the concept of what we were proposing, and then get them through a sale, and then take them through how to implement this, how to actually get value out of that thing. So it's a very consultative process. And I found that part the most enjoyable. Other aspects great as well. Obviously a great team to work with. But that's what I really remember as the key part for me. Of course, where we are now with Power Peers is we've decided, the two founders, and Chris, this, and myself, we have decided to take leave of what we were doing. We were trying to get some kind of control of that from the owner. And to be fair, the owner tried quite hard to help us, but somehow it didn't work out. And at some point, we just had to say this, sadly, this isn't going to work for us.
Well, at least the company in the form of Power Peers Connect, the software company, and the software itself isn't going to progress as we hoped. Maybe the owner will still use it, we hope, in some form. But but the need in the market is still there. And so so where's your vision, I guess, for where that capability is going, and where is your part in that? Because this is everyday entrepreneurs everywhere. So I'm curious,
Exactly.
this is sort of market making activities here. What's your forecast for the future?
So I think this technology is going to be very widespread. This is about making energy traceable. And in the same way that people want their food supplies to be traceable, and they want to know that their clothing that they're buying was made from ethically sourced materials and so on, the same applies to energy. I think the Power Peers technology was maybe a few years ahead of its time. And there is room for a brand new version of that to come along and take its place. What we noticed is that everybody that we spoke to in the industry could see this coming along, and they all knew that at some point in their future they would be integrating this technology. What we couldn't get is for the one to have the courage to say, I'm going to do this first and pull the other ones with me. So there's a certain hurdle to be crossed for widespread acceptance of this. And at the moment, it's with some funky early adopter types who are doing a great job with it. And it would be lovely to spread it more into the mainstream.
Just for the I guess average listener out there, can you give 60 seconds on what the hell are you talking about? What is PowerPeers?
So specifically what PowerPeers does. So I like to explain it like this. So if you think of the electricity grid, you have a physical layer where the electrons are flowing from a power station to a consumer, which might be your home. And those electrons flow whichever way they flow according to physics. You can imagine then on top of that, there's a commercial layer. So your supplier has purchased electricity from a power plant and has sold it to you. Now that power plant might be a completely different part of the country, might have actually nothing to do with the electrons that flow to your home. But the commercial flow, if you like, is coming from that power plant and ending up at your home. What we do at PowerPeers is we add a layer on top of this where we enable a virtual allocation between a power source and a consumption. And we enable that to happen based on everybody's preference. So if I have solar panels on my roof and I would like to supply to your house, Chris, then we can simply do that through the platform, and the platform will make sure that when I have excess energy from my solar panels, it gets allocated to your consumption if you had consumption at that time. And it's all done, of course, without double counting. So it's adding a different way of allocating the electricity grid. On top of the pre-existing ways.
And also a more trustful way because, of the many things I like about it, it gives a one-for-one sort of verified, trusted allocation of the electricity. And if you're interested in actually having green electricity, you can therefore, because it's, one in, one out, be very certain that the energy you're using is in fact green. Of course, the electrons flow as they will, and it's not, like in the Netherlands, which we call greenwashing and, certificates. And so actually you're being, fed a lot of black or gray energy, but then it's been painted green because they bought certificates from some other foreign country. I think that's really, really meaningful. And the challenge of all that is that is the capability. And what I appreciate about what your role is doing is trying to, how do you make a value proposition in another market outside of the Netherlands, and all these markets are slightly different. And how do you find a value proposition for the energy retailer as well as the energy consumer, business or home, residential? That was like a big puzzle. That is like a philosophical, puzzle. It seemed maybe not philosophical, but certainly logical. Yeah.
No, certainly you have to find. There are all kinds of different ways. I mean, one thing I love about this platform is it enables all kinds of possibilities. So, Chris, you mentioned people can choose green energy if that's what they want, but people could also choose local energy if that's what they want. Or they could choose the energy from their local sports club or whatever it is. But the point is you're enabling choices. I think it's incredibly powerful from that point of view.
Or also you're enabling them to choose their own, meaning if, community solar, that if a group of people or businesses want to co-invest in a local renewable, then this also allows them to, consume that even if it's really not on their roof, which is also incredibly powerful and being mandated by the EU government as of 2021. So, so I agree with you. It's just simply a matter of time, certainly in the US, where this transparency, provenance, ledgering allocation systems will be just completely standard. I can't wait for that. It's
There's a lot of market rules and market infrastructure which needs to come along with this concept, but it will happen. As you say, the EU is encouraging this, and for people that are within a collective or have the possibility to be in a collective, this is an obvious place where this kind of tool is useful for them. It's useful in certain, there's not that many countries, but some countries in the world that simply don't have green certificates of any sort, and they can use this solution instead of. It's of course much better and much more powerful anyway than green certificates. And there's of course a few markets which are advanced enough that people can literally trade energy amongst themselves if that's what they want to do, which is also something this kind of tool can facilitate. and that will clearly increase in the next years as more and more solar energy and more battery systems get installed. These things are becoming much cheaper than they used to be. In a few years, they will, in anywhere in the world, be absolutely the cheapest energy source you can find anywhere. So this is not about whether it's going to happen. This is about how fast can it be rolled out to catch up with the need to reduce CO2.
Yeah. No, fascinating. And what about you? What part of this play are you going to fulfill? In the global stage of sustainable energy and the developments there.
So I love the question. It's obviously very much on my mind right now, and I'm having right now a lot of fun talking to a whole bunch of different people. And I would invite anybody watching, if you would like to connect and have a phone call, a cup of coffee, whatever, let's do that.
What type of people are you looking for? Like, can you paint that picture of the people who
anybody that is interested in making their business more sustainable, maybe looking for some ideas on how to do that, or has realized the need and the urgency, but maybe doesn't have the expertise. Those would be my favorite people to talk to.
So you stated that sustainable as in a very broad sustainable terms. That's not necessarily energy. Okay.
That's not necessarily energy. Yeah. What I notice is that, of course, energy is a big subject and a very significant one when it comes to sustainability. But if you look at what businesses are now increasingly being required to stick to all kinds of environmental, social standards, which they certainly in Europe are going to have to start reporting. And most likely this will then spread. The whole investment community is pushing this. So more than 25% today of investment funds worldwide are applying some kind of ESG criteria to their investments. And many companies are maybe aware of that in the background, but haven't had chance to digest what it actually means or how they're going to be ranked. And if they find that they don't get high on the ranking, they're going to have more expensive capital than others. So this is a real issue.
What did you mean by ESG? Something sustainability goal?
So it's actually environmental, social, and governance.
Okay. Sorry, I had sustainability development goals in my brain when you said that, and I was like, wait.
Yeah, and it's all part of the same. Yeah, the sustainable development goals are somehow behind that, and it's become such a thing among the financing community, the investment community. In spite of the pandemic, this is giving a real impetus. A lot of things to be rolled out.
No, lovely. Well, I don't even know if I've shared this with you, but with some other people, we've actually taken the simplicity scan and we've ported that into a sustainability accelerator. It will be launched sometime in the next 6 weeks or so. So this might be coming out after that or before that. So, but when it does, I'll include a link into this. And I think you and I should compare notes on that because essentially what we did is we took the 15 domains of the simplicity scan and then mapped it against the sustainability development goals and recrafted the triggering strategic questions in order to really stimulate thinking about how an organization could become more sustainable, or at least think more sustainable. And of course, the mission there was don't boil the ocean. Can you use this dialogue tool to develop one strategic thing you can do in order to take a step forward, and then do that, and then repeat. So, you have
sounds like a great initiative.
Yeah, it's fun. It's you have used the simplicity scan a couple of times now. I'm just curious, how was that for you? What
I love using it. It does all kinds of things. It organizes the thought process. But for me, the most important part was the kind of discussions it entrained. among the team.
Mm-hmm.
What we discovered is some topics existed which we didn't maybe talk about enough, and there wasn't alignment, but we only discovered that by filling in the scan.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the right kind of discussion could take place. So this was very powerful. I don't know. I mean, you have lots of experience now doing this, Chris. So I don't know how often that comes up, but I can imagine quite a lot.
Well, it has been described as rather, sort of the ultimate alignment tool. I'm not sure, I'm not sure how ultimate it is, but it certainly stimulates conversation and dialogue, and that's really the purpose of it. I really recommend that when people do it as a team, they assign someone, doesn't have to be me or you, but as a facilitator, because what's not able to be captured in sort of this linear one-page, document is the emotional dimension of it. Because, when I'm coaching people with it or teams with it, it's often the things that are unsaid or the tone of which people are responding or asking that you're saying, well, okay, you really don't believe this, do you? And then it's behind that there is the actual question and the magic and the challenge. So, yeah, absolutely. Because that is essentially what it's for, is to stimulate thinking and discussion, either within your own head as a solopreneur or a single person, or as a management team or leadership team. Not only when you're starting something, but also when something's ongoing. So you also have some different methods and background that you use to, continue ensuring your own success in the business place. You mentioned tango coming into this, and I'm like, so okay, so how would you connect tango to sustainable energy?
Let's talk about. I love talking about tango. It's one of my favorites. So Argentine tango, something I learned maybe in the last 10 years. So it's not like I've been doing this forever. Mm-hmm. And what I've realized as I'm doing it is there's an awful lot of parallels between what you do in a dance and how you are at work, or how you may want to be at work. Now, tango is a partner dance, and it's fully improvised. So you have to do something with a person, and it's a dance, so it should be in harmony. I mean, if it wasn't in harmony, it would turn into a fight, and fighting and dancing have a lot in common. But here the aim is to create a dance, which I feel is also the aim in a workplace when you're with people. What I like about it is you're dancing with each other, but there's other people in the room. So in some ways you're dancing with the room, and of course you're dancing with the music. So you can compare it a little bit to a situation at work where you're dealing with each other, but you're also dealing with all the other crowd around and what they're trying to do. And you're also dealing with a general flow of stuff going on in your business. And to the short summary of things that have taken out of the tango that have really clicked with me as great examples for the workplace. Top of the bill is it's about the frame of mind. So if the two of you join up and you want to enjoy a dance together, you have to be in a generous frame of mind. You want to offer this other person a good time. If you're standoffish or feel like you have something to prove, or like the other person has something to prove, that's not going to create a dance. So this is for me, this is like a really active way to apply mindfulness. You want to be as mindful of the other person as you possibly can. Number two is following is an activity. Following is not passive. So if in that pair where there is nominally a leader and a follower, if you're the follower, your job is to make life as easy as possible for your leader. and you should use all your technique and all your ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You are not doing your job if you wait until your leader shows you stuff or drags you around. Very much relevant in a workplace. When I think back in my early career, when in a much more industrial environment, and some blue collar types who rather have a confrontational attitude, then that's not good followership. That's something else. And maybe it's appropriate there, but it's not appropriate if you want to create a dance. And the other thing is, of course, you have a leader and a follower, but you should keep it within each other's comfort zone. You're not doing this to be uncomfortable. When you are comfortable with each other and with each other's technique and with the dance, you can maybe get to a place where you can push the boundaries a bit from a place of comfort. And that's a great way to learn something new together. So all of those things I can immediately translate into relationships in the workplace and how you should get on with each other. And that learning, it's not going one way or the other. It goes both ways. So I also take things to the tango, which I've learned elsewhere. That's one of the great pleasures.
Wow. I hope we have an opportunity to take that soundtrack that you just said and lay that over some tango graphics. I was just watching it thinking this is beautiful. I have likened customer service interactions as a dance before, but never as elegantly as you just did, because I can totally see it, that if to serve someone, a customer, and to develop that experience and again co-create and stage that experience, that is a dance. That if either of the parties come up hostile or indifferent, and usually, sadly, a lot of organizations, because people are not really satisfied with work, and either they are indifferent at best, and customers are trained to be oftentimes hostile in order to, I just got off the phone with Apple. Unfortunately, sometimes hostility is required in order to get things done. And then and you also, the action aspect of it as well is nothing would happen. The memorable experience wouldn't happen if people are just sitting there. And I think also with comfort zone, I was going to disagree with you and say, well, no, learning happens in the comfort zone, but then you loop back to that. And what I liked about that is it's learning or stretching or discovering, but probably with discipline and mindfully. So, okay, this is what we're going to learn now. Let's try that and let's fail. And then until we perfect it. So no, beautiful. And, how can you map that back to Power Peers at all? Like how did you see, how did you experience that dance?
So of course it's more complicated than one dance. There's a few different dances going on at once. So there was a dance. I mean, I can see that there was a dance within the team, within, let's say, the management team, which went pretty well in the sense that we all care for each other and we know each other and understand each other's technique and can do that stuff. And there were some dances with the different teams at work, which in our environment was pretty good. A couple of dances that were maybe more difficult, certainly in my experience, was with our investor, where sometimes we were dancing a different dance or hearing a different music. And some of the dancing with customers or with prospective customers, and that's always the hardest bit when you're just learning each other. How do you make that happen? And I mean, there's a great moment when I was earlier in my tango career, but it absolutely always applies. When you're learning something and it's hard and it's a partner thing, it's quite easy to get in a place where you blame your partner. It's like, well, I'm doing my bit. Why aren't you doing your bit? And one great tango teacher said to me, "Hey, you can only work on your own technique. So work on your own technique."
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that advice is, the best relationships, personal or professional, are amongst people who take full responsibility for the relationship themselves. And if both parties take full responsibility themselves for the relationship, then it can work. But if
that's when it really happens.
Yeah. So, but if someone's not taking responsibility for themselves in order to, fulfill their obligation or be part of that relationship, then it falls apart. So. Wow, cool. Well, again, I hope we were able to put your soundtrack over some video.
I'd love to do that.
We are running out of time. I would, really eager to see where Simon Broad, continues his many year journey into sustainability, and bringing the tango leadership to organizations in the future. If you would like to get in touch with Simon, he is available at LinkedIn. You can also find all of his contact details with LinkedIn at ebullient.com/podcast/Simon Broad. Get in touch with him to talk about tango and sustainability and energy, and whatever other topics. So, Simon, would you like to leave us with any final thoughts on all of these various things we touched very briefly?
Chris, I'm very happy to have been able to do this. Thank you. And I would just urge people to think once more about their sustainability and their footprint. Thank you.
Yeah. So great. I'm going to jump back in there. Simon, what is one thing people can do to contribute themselves actually now?
So lots of things. If I have to pick one, I would say stop using your car, use the bicycle, the public transport as often as you can. Yeah.
So avoid the car whenever possible. Does that count for electric vehicles as well, or only carbon based?
It depends where you are, but be careful where you get your electricity from.
Yeah.
If you have the right kind of electricity, of course, you should be able to use your electric car.
So bringing that full circle, if you use an electric vehicle, you should be using it with energy that you can prove comes through a green source by using a technology such as PowerPierce.
Absolutely correct.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for joining.
Learn more at ebullient.com/podcast.